Are you on the search for any sort of information that will make you a better candidate when it comes to applying for college? Well, if yes, then I think I've found the perfect podcast for you. And before we begin, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Drew, and on this channel, I talk about a lot of topics surrounding the college experience and higher education. So if you enjoy this video, or if this is a topic that interests you, then make sure you hit subscribe. So this podcast is from the Yale University Admissions Office, and it is appropriately named Inside the Yale Admissions Office. And you can find this directly on their website, but you can also find this on platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or anywhere where you can find podcasts in general. And the whole idea of this podcast in particular, it is co-hosted by two current admissions officers, and they wanted to bring transparency to the admissions process. Because we have these preconceived notions and these ideas of what we think we need to do to get into selective institutions, and more often than not, we are wrong. And the only ones who truly know what will get an applicant into that school are the ones who work in the admissions office. So there are several episodes, and they will bring on guests, whether that is fellow staff or outside entities as well. And they really sort of break down the application process, things they've seen, and also tips for you. So they may talk about essay writing and what are some good practices for that. They may talk about supplemental materials if you are asked to do an interview with an alumni of Yale or one of their staff. And how do you best approach that? And I think this is incredibly valuable because there are so many things that people tell us, or what we read about on the internet, or some people, some businesses might be a little predatory and offer services where they know the secret that will get you in. And again, they're probably not right. So these episodes were very down to earth, they're very genuine, they're very informative. And I had a few key takeaways just from several of these episodes that I thought were applicable in many different facets. And the first one kind of goes with what I've already said, where it's just don't play the game. Don't try to game the system. Don't try to follow a formula or a method. Maybe you know someone who got into Yale or another Ivy League school, and you're trying to sort of mirror what they did. Don't do that. The second thing that kind of goes along with that is just being genuine and being authentic. Because when they talk about the essay portion, there are so many times where they would read applicants who use sort of the highfalutin vocabulary, if you will, or rather the big words that you don't really use in everyday conversation, and it doesn't even look like you wrote it, it looks like someone else wrote it. They want to know who you are, what makes you special, what do you like to do, because then they can get a better idea of who you are as a person and how you can contribute to the community at Yale and the student population. So don't write about what you think they want to hear, write about who you are, write about what you truly think, because that is what will make you stand out more than anything else. I think they also talked about letters of recommendation. It was sort of the same thing, is go find recommenders who know you best. Don't necessarily go for the title or the position. You know, one of the examples they used was maybe you're family friends with an alumnus from Yale who is the CEO of a company. They may not know you, so don't think that their status as an alumnus or their title in their business is going to carry the weight for that letter, because the admissions officers are looking for substance of who you are and not anything else. And they also say more is not necessarily better. So I think at the time they were asking for 2 letters of recommendation. So you don't need to go out and get 5 thinking that that's going to give you an advantage. There was also an episode that talked about supplemental materials. So if you are an artistic student, you could submit art or dance or film. You don't have to. It's not going to hurt you, but it sort of adds, what they would say is it just adds more context to who you are. So again, it goes back to just being authentic. So always stay focused on that. Another takeaway that I pulled from there was such a talented applicant pool where these admissions officers kept stressing, if you don't get into Yale, it's just more of a numbers game than anything, and it's not because you are not a good applicant, which I thought is comforting to know. It's probably not the most comforting if you really want to get into Yale, but to understand that it's not personal, it's just they can't let everyone in. And that's how they do business, and to not be too defeated by that process. And it was interesting because I listened to a lot of these episodes around the same time as I was reading the book, The Gatekeepers, which followed an admissions staff at Wesleyan in the Northeast in Connecticut. And I saw a lot of similarities. There were some parallel paths. There were some places where they crossed paths in terms of how they did business, and some things that were slightly different, which I thought was interesting. But for the most part, overall the same. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that you need to know as an applicant is that in both the book and this podcast is these admissions officers, they care about you. They care about you as people. They're not just robots blindly reading applications and moving on. They do care about you, and they want you to achieve your dreams, to realize those dreams. They want what's best for you. So always keep that in mind as you are submitting the applications, that you're not sending them into a black hole to be judged by cold-hearted people. They actually care. If you are looking at attending a college where the admissions process is not as selective or it's not as rigorous, I think listening to these episodes is just as valuable because the takeaways are applicable to other areas. And some of those areas are if you are applying for specific programs, or not specific, but special programs, or like leadership programs, if you're applying for scholarships, because those application processes will be similar to what you would be going through if you were trying to apply to a selective institution. Meaning, they're going to ask for essays, and they're going to ask you to respond to things and tell them about yourselves and who you really are, maybe some ups and downs in your life. And that was one thing they also touched on, is when you talk about a story in your life, it doesn't always have to be negative. They want to know just how you've changed and grown as a person. So there's so many little tidbits in these episodes, and I won't give them all away here. I think that would take too long. So make sure you go check out these episodes. They're about half an hour long, so you can get through them very quickly, very easily. It's an enjoyable listen. You can do it while you're commuting, while you're walking. It's just great. And they are still putting out new episodes at the time of this filming, so it is always going to be relevant. So please go check it out and let me know what you think. And if you know of any other podcasts that are similar, I would also like to know that too. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it. Go give it a listen, and I will catch you in the next one.